subscribe to the Donnie Houston podcast, man. Wow. Okay, so at what age? Because this is 5 years old when you see this conversation. When do y'all come to Houston? Like, how old are you when you make it to Houston?
We came to Houston. We came to Houston, I think, when I was like 5.
So around not long after this
5.
time, this is when y'all make a move.
Hell, Quincy, how old were we when we come here, man? Huh? My brother was looking like he's 90 years old. But
Oh, that's Quincy. Oh man, what's up, man?
Get chill, slide that chill over here, brother. Come sit next to your brother, man. You sitting over there hiding in the corner. I was 5. I was 5 when I came.
So okay, you get here, and because does your mom continue to be a Muslim when y'all move here?
No. In fact, my mom had stopped being a Muslim when we were in Los Angeles. When she separated from my father and divorced my father, Akil Shabazz, my mother went back to the world. My mother went back to the streets. My mom became an alcoholic. She used a lot of drugs, and alcohol just destroyed her life.
Same with my dad. My dad's alcoholic, so I understand.
In fact, I haven't really said this much publicly, but the first time I ever drank beer or smoked a marijuana or hit a marijuana joint, I was 5 years old with my mother. My cousin David was there, and she gave us a competition. Whoever could finish the beer can the fastest could puff the joint with her. And I was 5 years old.
Wait, this just sounds so extreme. Is any of this going on while y'all are in the Muslim life, or it was just a drastic change?
No, once she left the Nation of Islam, my mother completely failed. Once my mother and father separated, my mother had a tremendous fall. She spiritually completely failed. She went to drugs and alcohol. She completely abandoned the teachings and the program of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and she went away from that. I can remember us growing up in the Nation of Islam school, Muhammad's University of Islam. I remember my brothers and I, we would catch the bus to the school and we would say the little Muslim nursery rhymes that we had learned. I remember that when I was 5, and maybe even younger, we had Arabic teachers that would come to the house and they would teach us Arabic. Well, my mother was a teacher. My mother was an actual teacher at the University of Islam in Los Angeles during this time. And we would learn Arabic, and they would teach us Arabic, and we went to school every day. And my mother worked downstairs. I believe it was downstairs. Wasn't it, Quincy? Downstairs in the classroom downstairs, she was a teacher. And my mother was a devout Muslim at that time. But the minute she moved away from my father, she abandoned Islam. And my mother completely failed, became a totally different woman than what she was as a Muslim.
Wow. So what was the thing to say we going to Houston?
My grandmother was here. My aunts, uncles were here. Cousins were here. We had a big family here. We have an even bigger family in California, in Los Angeles. But we have a big family here in Houston. So she brought us to Houston. And ultimately, I believe the real reason was she wanted her mom to help her raise her kids. Because when we got here to Houston, it was pretty quick. My grandmother was the one who became the primary caregiver and caretaker of me and my 2 brothers, Quincy and Quentin Toast. My grandmother became the primary caretaker of us all.
Wait, so Toast, it was older than you?
No, he was younger.
He was younger than you. Okay, right.
He was the youngest boy.
Gotcha. That's what I thought.
He was the youngest boy of us 3.
Yeah.
And Toast, he was the youngest boy. Quincy's the oldest. I'm the middle boy. But my grandmother was the one who became our primary caretaker. And my mother was pretty much running the streets. She ran the streets every day, all day, nonstop. And my grandmother was the only solid foundation that we had. My grandmother was a housekeeper, and my grandmother worked as a housekeeper until physically her health declined to where she could not do that anymore. I remember that sometime my brother Quincy would get up every morning and walk my grandmother to the bus stop. At that time, there was a number of women in our community who would get up like 5:30 in the morning. They would all wait at the bus stop because they was catching the bus to white neighborhoods, for they were the maids and housekeepers for the white people in the neighborhoods. Well, my brother Quincy would get up practically every morning and walk my grandmother to the bus stop. I walked with him every blue moon, but it was primarily Quincy who walked with her to the bus stop. And I remember she worked for a Jewish family over in close to West University, West U. And I remember my grandmother used to get on her hands and knees, and she would wipe their floors on her hands and knees in her 60s. She was in her 60s, and she would wipe their floors. Then I remember when the old white people died, the little boy that my grandmother helped raise, the little boy that my grandmother, the Jewish kid that my grandmother raised since he was born, had become a grown man. Because she worked for him for 40-something years.
His whole life, yeah.
40-something years. He inherited my grandmother as a housekeeper. And my grandmother, when he was in his late 20s, my grandmother would still be on her hands and knees,
Same thing.
wiping the floors with a cloth. She would wipe their floors. And I remember saying to myself one time, I was like, wow, why would they leave? Why would they allow my grandmother leave and allow my grandmother to get on her hands and knees so old? Because she had severe arthritis. Why would they allow her to get on her hands and knees like that and wipe floors? And I didn't understand it then as a kid, as a young boy. But I don't know if my brother Quincy remember this, but she used to let Quincy sometime go in, my grandmother. We could never go to the front door. We had to always go around to the back door. We couldn't go to the front door. And so she would let my brother Quincy go in sometime to help her wipe the floors so she could finish quicker and we could get to the bus stop and we could leave. And I remember one time I went in with Quincy and the white woman came home, and my grandmother was nervous that the white lady would see that we were at her home. So my grandmother told my brother Quincy and I, she said, before y'all walk out this house, turn your pockets inside out. And we stuck our hands in our pockets and turned them inside out.
Wow.
So the white woman would see that we hadn't stole anything and that my grandmother's employment would be safe. So she wouldn't think that we had stole anything.
As a kid, are you seeing what's really going on with this, or you just kind of this is just how it is when we go over here to these white people's house?
I'm feeling it more than I'm seeing it, because what it's saying to me subconsciously is this white woman is of such a seat of authority and power that I have to subjugate myself to a stooping lower level to accommodate this lady because she's worthy to be accommodated. And I have to capitulate my behavior and be as meek as I possibly can, because the ultimate goal, based on my grandmother's spirit, was she needs to be pleased and made to feel comfortable. So I felt it more than what I actually saw it. I didn't fully comprehend until I got much older what it is I was actually seeing.
Donnie Houston.